Welcome to a special bonus episode of the Silver Nitrate Witches Movie Review Brew, the podcast where we usually talk about movies, but today we're talking about television.
And actually, one movie.
And one movie, right. And we are your Silver Nitrate Witches. My name is Isabelle Lang. I'm a writer, editor, and tarot reader.
And I'm Laura Valenza. I'm co-film editor at the Brooklyn Rail and a writer. And happy Halloween, everyone.
Happy Halloween. Happy witchy season. Happy ghost time.
Were you going for something there?
No, I wasn't. Happy celebrating the day that the veil is the thinnest. And in that spirit... Lauren, I thought it would be neat to spend some time sharing with you today our thoughts and words on a genre of media that we both have a deep love and appreciation for, and that is paranormal investigative reality TV.
Yes, and we're going to do a slightly different format today, which is more the conference paper scripted version of the podcast.
Yes. So, without further ado, here is... Shh! Did you hear that? Women's voices in paranormal and investigative reality TV. Take it away, Laura.
Growing up watching ghost shows meant that we were well attuned to the gimmicks of the genre. But when our favorite pop star, Kesha, announced her own attempt at the paranormal investigative reality TV genre, we immediately sensed a schism in this typically predictable and usually uneventful format. While scholars Helen A. Berger and Douglas Ezzi interviewed 90 young witches for their 2009 article, Mass Media and Religious Identity, a case study of young witches, leading them to claim that fictional representations of witchcraft in the visual media of the 90s and early aughts has led to a resurgent interest in the craft and spiritualism. This recent flurry of paranormal activity in reality television suggests the superstar interest in the supernatural has only led to more public interest in the phenomena. This evolution of ghost hunting shows has been greatly influenced by gender and sexuality over the years, ushering in a gentler, more emotionally intelligent take on the paranormal, and representing a greater cultural shift from a masculine and colonial-coded pursuit of universal truth to an introspective search for personal truth.
Conjuring Kesha seems to be a part of a larger trend of women proudly reclaiming their preteen obsessions with all things witchy and occult, but with a more compassionate approach. Vanessa Hudgens of DCOM and Netflix holiday film fame released her own film, Dead Hot, Season of the Witch, documenting her travels to Salem to learn about and connect with the spirit world. Fellow pop star Demi Lovato boasts her own paranormal series from 2021, Unidentified with Demi Lovato, wherein she and friends investigate UFO claims. And a few eerie seasons ago saw the premiere of Living for the Dead on Hulu, wherein a crew of queer psychics, witches, and paranormal professionals help property owners investigate and understand the bad vibes in their various haunted locales. In the early aughts, Canada got there before the States with their own series, The Girly Ghost Hunters, in which 4 female friends and paranormal sleuths explore famous haunted locations around Ontario, and Rescue Mediums, wherein a pair of sweet, clucking English ladies, think the Goose Sisters from the Aristocats, use their skills as mediums to help folks feel safe in their own homes. Meanwhile, Britain offered a female-driven spin-off of its popular show Most Haunted called Screaming Banshees. The take on this genre offers a lighter departure from the grittier investigative series we've binged for so long.
In this recent addition to the paranormal reality TV genre, pop star Kesha sets aside the guitar in favor of her fascination with the occult, breaking out all the witchy vibes, albeit in the form of pink and rhinestone REM pods, vintage radio-style ghost boxes, an early aughts camcorder decked out in vinyl stickers, and a crushed velvet and sheer mesh wardrobe to cowboy boot. Make no mistake, this black magic woman has no intention of replicating the tired and bro-y standard format of the ghost hunt. Although we could totally believe her to be a high priestess of the goddess Artemis, Kesha is not on the hunt at all, but rather on a mission to understand the humans behind vortices of negative energy during her healing journey of self-discovery that all the spooky little girls like us are more than welcome to join her on. Some classic ghost show elements stay the same. The equipment, but more stylish, and overnight stay, but anyone can and does leave if it's too much, and the guest appearances of psychics who act more like ghost therapists. The sessions are a team effort like many other quintessential ghost shows, but Kesha's partner in Grimm changes from episode to episode as various fashionable and charismatic friends like Betty Who and Big Frida join her in the afterlife. In 2007, Michael J. Coven wrote an article, Most Haunted and the Convergence of Traditional Belief and Popular Television, about the American pursuit of excess in television. And perhaps there's a new kind of stylish excess in shows like these as a response to the aging standard format of the ghost hunting gimmick. By calling themselves Girly Ghost Hunters, for example, using cutesy equipment and dressing the sexy feminine or queer part, these new hosts are highlighting the ways in which the feminine and the queer have historically been excluded from haunted spaces.
From the 19th century obsession with spiritualism and parlor seances to ghost adventures with the inimitable Zach Baggins, it's safe to say people have always loved the idea of talking to ghosts with their friends. In fact, some of these creepy stories have been around since the early years of American fiction in the 19th century. In her 2012 article on antebellum witchcraft stories, Lisa M. Vater writes about the desires of writers to create a literature that was distinctly American, and how, quote, literary nationalism clearly motivated these writings, end quote, which dug deep into the colonial history of the country to raise centuries-old tales of witch trials from the dead. Moving toward the next century, spiritualists of the 1870s began the practices we see most often in paranormal investigations of today: hard proof. Molly McGarry, in her 2000 article on spectral sexualities, describes how full materialization of spiritual bodies were now demanded in lieu of the previous raps on the table or messages from the mouth of the medium. More recently, or the late 60s and early 70s, saw a similar resurgence of interest in these topics, with the cognitive dissonance of goddess feminism, having some feminists panning the practice as nothing but foolish romantic mysticism nonsense, and some goddess followers biting back that it was an allowance to embrace not only the feminine roles set by them for society, but also the roles of warrior, the virgin, the destructive crone, or anything else they wanted to be, as described by Catherine Roundtree in her 1999 article on the politics of the goddess. Marcello Truzzi, in a 1972 article, The Occult Revival as Popular Culture, even rounds up stats on the 150 plus occult-related books in print in the 60s, along with a mention of a recent spike in the trend of Ouija boards. Paranormal television, however, had its start a bit earlier, with shows like Ripley's Believe It or Not in 1949 and One Step Beyond in 1959, perhaps a heads up for the occult fads and goddess followings to come. Rather than the reality investigative format most of us have come to know and love, these initial iterations were styled more like docuseries in the vein of Unsolved Mysteries, which also had the occasional paranormal episode early on in its production run before focusing more exclusively on crime. Other early versions of paranormal television even aired on local news programs as segments about alleged paranormal sightings reported nearby. Think Mothman, the Chupacabra, the Jersey Devil, that one's for
Woo!
etc. Urban legends that kept locals talking and kept tourists coming. The reality paranormal investigation format didn't gain popularity until the new millennium. The Blair Witch Project in '99, though a fictional depiction, is an early example of the genre and preceded any reality investigative series like MTV's Fear, which was the first to use the familiar format of individuals using handheld cameras to explore an allegedly haunted location, with a $5,000 cash prize to those who survived the whole night. However, what's most interesting about the shifting forms of paranormal interest over the years is how close it's remained to home, how individualized it's become. Think seances in the parlors of wealthy homes, Ouija boards tucked into closets among family board games, nightly news broadcasts on the TV, hours spent binging ghost hunting shows from our sofas. A curiosity for all things eerie has stayed with us in a pretty personal space. And now, the paranormal media itself is reflecting that personalization on the screen as well. In his 2019 article, Queer Spectralities and Untimely Subjects, Kevin Chabot writes, quote, "Contemporary paranormal reality television, however, aims to embed the pursuit of ghosts and the supernatural within the traditionally masculine enterprise of scientific investigation, rejecting the historical association between spiritualism and the feminine," end quote. He goes on to analyze how the web series Queer Ghost Hunters, about a group of queer paranormal investigators rectifying the invisibility of queer ghosts, confronts the, quote, "aggressive masculinity," end quote, inherent in the typical ghost show by offering a, quote, "project of emotional rescue," end quote. In terms of seeking personal truth over the scientific need for proof, Chabot describes the approach of the Queer Ghost Hunters as such. Quote, "Unlike the aggressive activity of hunting, the seance resembles something akin to a group counseling session," end quote. As we've pointed out in shows in which we see a more feminine approach to paranormal investigation, Chabot writes, quote, "Gone are the aggressive commands for the ghost to show themselves or make themselves known," end quote. Perhaps most significantly, Chabot writes, "The masculinity inherent in the technophilia of other ghost shows is contrasted by Queer Ghost Hunters' return to the spiritualist tools of the past, such as dowsing rods." As Chabot has suggested, the standard format ghost show often attracts a hyper-tough investigator focused on presenting themselves as unscarable to their counterparts who might express fear or want to stop. Take our beloved Zach Baggins, for example. Now, we're some of the first to loudly and proudly declare our love for the over-the-top antics of Ghost Adventures. But following the wildly entertaining voiceover in the opening credits, there is an inevitable moment in most episodes where one or more of the crew show concern about a noise or a weird feeling, and while Zach does take their claim seriously for the investigation, they're rarely asked if they want to leave or take a break. As a side note, in recent seasons, Zach and his cohort have definitely shifted to a more emotional gear and embraced a level of campiness and humor, suggesting how paranormal investigation since the age of Victorian spiritualism has always reflected cultural shifts. To be fair, we can probably chalk line up some of these host behaviors across these shows to the nature of reality television and people on camera being manipulated by producers trying to get a good show. But some of it we can probably also attribute to things like a determination to not seem like a quitter, or a desire to appear masculine or brave. So how does the traditional genre compare to our new ghost hunting obsessions? Let's take Conjuring Kesha for starters, in which the pop star does follow a fairly standard investigative format, taking her friends and fellow artists along to the allegedly haunted or otherwise creepy places with their own cameras and equipment to see if the experiences live up to the stories told by locals. But unlike her predecessors, Kesha's setup is a far more tender one. Sure, jump scares and ghostly touches abound, but rather than a search for a confirmation of the paranormal, she and her crew seek out closure for the spirits harbored within the space. And maybe for some of the investigators too. Kesha and Big Frida bring in a medium to a haunted psych ward to drive off a spirit that the owners claim has been harassing other remaining ghostly patients. She and Betty Who sing Amazing Grace with the spirits of a haunted opera house. Gaeta, in conversation with a psychic while exploring Westerfield House, ruminates on the meaning of truth and its place in his own life. A trip to a haunted tattoo parlor diverts Kesha to confronting mortality with the ultra-secret society of the Oddfellows, and a personal favorite moment of mine in the very first episode, when Kesha hard nopes out of a prison with reported demonic activity, her producer asks, "Do you want to take a break or are you done?" And when she responds, "I think I'm done," the crew respects that decision and wraps things up with no pressure to continue in sight.
And that marks one of the biggest breaks from traditional ghost hunting. Conjuring Kesha gets personal and intimate. Many episodes center existential questions, tackle the problem of inherited trauma, and face the human-inflicted abuse that often generated the real horror beneath the paranormal veil. In the episode titled Songs for the Dead, Kesha and musician Betty Who learn, after hearing about and feeling for themselves the overwhelmingly tragic vibes in the basement, that the building Antoinette Hall was built on the Trail of Tears. Rather than prod the energy they sense, they consult a local member of the Seminole Nation. In a poignant moment, in a manner that might reach more people than a dry history textbook, he educates them about the Removal Act of 1830. Regardless of how you feel about the spectral element of the show, it does become a powerful and accessible tool for discussing the unresolvable problem of building an American dance hall on blood-soaked soil, a microcosm of the most foundational hypocrisies of the United States. Good-natured fun becomes muted by the seriousness of tragedy. And the show makes space for respecting the tragedy alongside the snark. In the same episode, Betty Who and Kesha learn about and claim to experience the presence of a spirit nicknamed Mr. Nasty by those affiliated with Antoinette Hall, though they choose to call him by his proper name, Mr. May, out of respect for the deceased. And this choice represents an integral ethical pillar to the structure of the overall show. During an emotional and hauntingly specific psychic tour of the building, their priority becomes to understand this poltergeist's motivation and ultimately decide that he simply wants to protect his legacy. Unlike the typical ghost show, Kesha and Betty have no interest in provoking the spirit, but rather demonstrating successful communication and conflict resolution skills. Something we could all use a reminder of in the era of X/Twitter wars and Slack pings, all while keeping us entertained with some altogether ooky moments.
And Kesha and crew aren't the only hosts bringing these personal elements to their hunts. The Girly Ghost Hunters bring their circa 2,000 tiny purses tucked under their arms as they tour each location in the daylight, filled with their own favorite items for investigation: a pendulum, a Ouija planchet, etc. And these girls also even bring the personal, homey vibe along for the ride, literally, arriving on site in an RV with their show's name emblazoned on the side. The mediums and investigators of Living for the Dead do the same, caravanning all over the country in a vintage motorhome, decked out on the inside with pink shag carpet, twinkly lights, and fringe on every door and window. They bring along their own personal touches as well. Logan reveals in one moment how strange it was to have to come out as both queer and a medium in his youth. And Juju emphasizes her connection to her cultural roots, using an ancestral veneration as the foundation of her practice. The rescue mediums close out each episode having a casual drink, often with the homeowners themselves, upon cleansing the houses of any lingering malevolent spirits, and sometimes their meditations even turn up more than everyone bargained for, bringing to light some details not just about the spirits that haunt the homes, but the living residents as well. As in one episode, where they sense the spirit of a young girl, helping a couple to grieve the recent loss of a child.
So who are these shows for, and to whom are they responding? In Lauren Chestnut's 2013 neo-colonial scenarios in the Sci-Fi Channel's Destination Truth, Scientific Discovery, Tourism, and Ethnography, she describes the potential audience. Quote, "What motivates viewers to seek out shows like these can be difficult to pinpoint, but a recent broad study of Americans interested in paranormal topics by 3 Baylor University sociologists found that many people motivated by these subjects are interested in the paranormal because they hope to take part in, whether personally or by proxy, a major discovery for the world at large," end quote. Has there been another audience shift since the flurry of paranormal reality TV academic research in the aughts and early 2010s? A 2022 New York Times article proclaimed the future isn't female anymore, claiming that feminism needs to be able to paint a picture of a better world and enlist people in the adventure of trying to create it, end quote. The article goes on to posit, quote, "But this is a fearful, hopeless, and even nihilistic time," end quote. Meanwhile, articles about American women's interest in witchcraft, which dovetails with the paranormal and personal empowerment themes of this new era of paranormal shows, pop up in the Times and elsewhere, with the Daily Mail saying witches now outnumber Presbyterians in America, and other news outlets like BuzzFeed, USA Today, and NBC News all exploring the brewing movement towards witchcraft. Meanwhile, the Catholic News Agency and New York Post are stirring up alarmist trouble. If only the Post had seized the opportunity to finish off their headline about casting off Christianity with "in favor of casting spells." Quoted in Witchcraft in the Me Too Era, Chase A. Clifton says, quote, witchcraft, tides well with the feminist movement happening and internet culture popularizing it, end quote. Perhaps looking toward the future doesn't cut it anymore, especially as we emerge from a global pandemic into a moment of warfare, environmental devastation, repealing second-wave feminism's greatest legislative victory, and a second Trump presidency. It might even feel like we're moving backwards. While witchcraft, like the feminist movement, comes with its own set of controversies and issues, it doesn't ask us to imagine or fight for a brighter future. Witchcraft and the fascination with the paranormal succeed a multitude of global lineages and traditions. They are often about looking inward, toward the past and ancestors, or toward an afterlife. Witchcraft specifically is about defenses and protective sisterhoods. Maybe the future isn't female anymore, not because feminism is dying, but because feminism is undead. While these new series represent a break from the old genre in terms of consent, respect, a value of emotional intelligence, stylish excess, and even the introduction of an intentional celebration of campiness, none do it quite to the level of Vanessa Hudgens' 2022 documentary, Dead Hot. Here, Hudgens and her best witch, Gigi Georgia McGree, make the most decisive break from the old ways and clearest connection to the old witchy ways in an overt reclamation of the relationship between female empowerment and supernatural powers. After a ghost hunt gone wrong, as the logline puts it, the doc follows Vanessa and Gigi to Salem, Massachusetts, where they plan on connecting with ancestral witches, seeking ghosts, and reflecting on their own spirituality to create, quote, the catalyst into self-growth, exploration, and love. We thought we were seeking evidence of spirits and the supernatural, but what we found is our journey guided us into a deeper, more profound, and life-altering connection, end quote. First of all, the film does not even look like a ghost show. Clips from their ghost hunt gone wrong do take place at night with the use of night vision cameras, but rarely in Salem, where in some scenes they even seek out the spirits of witches in broad daylight. A night vision camera does make other appearances, once while the girls are goofing around at bedtime, emphasizing the ridiculous camp of this reality TV format turned documentary. The mockery of fakery even extends to the new format the documentary ushers in. A shot of Hudgens in the process of removing her pounds of makeup, black eyeliner, and mascara smudged zombie-like across her face reveals the act of feminine drag-like performance inherent to the film. Hudgens explicitly announces that the old days of the investigation are as dead as the ghosts. The format of the documentary further emphasizes the importance of personal truth over scientific discovery. Vanessa and Gigi read from diaries to narrate their tale. At a Salem witch shop, they purchase a book meant to record their journey of spellcasting together, and they exchange exclamations of love for each other. Each milestone in their journey is punctuated by forming new bonds with other contemporary spiritualists. Quote, "We're told not to cross the line," end quote, is the opening line of the film, echoing lectures girls have been unfortunately growing up with for far too long. Vanessa claims the Salem witches as empowered women threatening men and ties the events of 300 years ago to today. Quote, "Are we not still being threatened and controlled and our rights silenced and repressed?" End quote. When a spirit says it does not wish to talk, they say thank you and leave. They exhibit the most polite manners when trying to contact the dead. Quote, "We come into this space with love and good intentions," end quote. But these aren't nice girls. In costume, mannerisms, and conversation topics, the hot witch it girl embraces a brazen sexuality. Quote, "It's just feminine divinity to the max. It's so hot," end quote. Hot is not in the typical ghost hunt vocabulary. In Dead Hot, they also call Siri a slut and a bitch. An unusual amount of time is spent laughing at Gigi's attempt to say the word figuratively. In Conjuring Kesha, the pop star uses humorously surprising language about longing for cute spooky with her characteristic vocal fry. Did you hear that? These are not the typical voices of ghost hunters. In Deborah P. Dixon's 2011 article, Scream, the Sound of the Monstrous, she writes about the monstrous feminine and the feminine-coded scream in Most Haunted, the United Kingdom's televised answer to shows like Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures. But could Dixon's argument be expanded beyond the primordial vocalization to a whole new language adopted by women seeking empowerment through the supernatural? It's been argued that the act of critiquing vocal tics, including like and as well as Valley Girl speak, is actually sexist because the argument implies weakness or a lack of professionalism in the language women have adopted or been taught. In the more recent ghost shows, everyone speaks in a way that is not traditional to television hosting. These inventors of the paranormal investigative reality TV genre are reinventing language. In Living for the Dead, the gang even coins a new word, spookiki. With Kesha and her crew, as well as the other queer and lady-led investigations discussed above, there's no drive to determine whether or not the locations are indeed haunted. No need to prove the hosts or ghosts are brave or can survive the night. No prize money, no debunking. This era of paranormal investigation offers a far more introspective, emotionally intelligent, and empowering take on the traditional ghost hunt. So, ask your Ouija board if this is where the future of creepy and kooky reality TV and its audience lies. And we guarantee the planchet will pop over to...
Yes. You can find your Silver Nitrate Witches on various online platforms at LJ Valenza and at Bellang303. Thanks so much to Fine Motor for the use of their music. You can check out more about the band at finemotormusic.com. Thanks so much for listening. Stay witchy. And keep watching paranormal reality TV.
Tick-tock, it's time for us to go.
Love it. Okay.